Hey, good evening and welcome to the KFM Hotseat. Today I am sitting in for the old man of the clan. I neither have the scale and scope of his influence, neither am I speaking as fast as he does. But he asked me to sit in for him, and he will be back here next week. At least that's the communication he asked me to make. My name is Raymond Mpuuga, and I am joined by a very fantastic cast of people in the studio today. I will ask each of them to take a minute to tell us who they are, so that I don't get anyone's name and title wrong and we start off on the wrong foot. So I think we'll start with Jimmy.
Raymond, thanks for having me. I'm Jimmy Odoki from Heart Sounds, Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, listeners and viewers. My name is Rogers Magala, and I'm a reporter with the Daily Monitor.
Thank you.
Good evening to our listeners, and thank you, Raymond, for having me. My name is Tigushamu Ayevere, and
Chef.
Yes, also known as Chef. And it's very interesting that all my colleagues have introduced themselves by mentioning their places of work. However, those of us who are unemployed shall not but jokes aside, thank you for having me on this show, and I'm glad to be back.
I will tell your employer to deduct your salary for this month. I know them.
Thank you for having me, Raymond. My name is Frank Mujimba, and I'm a regular on the show.
My name is Isaac Kayonde, regular on the show, but also known here at the Daily Monitor as Gomba's finest.
Yes, Gomba's.
Yeah.
And what do they know in Gomba? What do they call you in Gomba?
Yeah, I'm the baddest.
I know so many people from Gomba, and one of them is my great friend, and I think he's an opposition leader too. So, gentlemen, of course we have to talk about the top stories of the week, and in cascading order, I think we will have to start with the most recent breaking story, if you can call it that, which is the formation of yet again a new party outside of the DP bloc called the Democratic Alliance by Honorable Matthias Mpuuga, which has just been unveiled to us about 3 hours ago. The name, the Democratic Alliance, is not new to Uganda's political scene, neither is it new to Africa's political scene. There was a Democratic Alliance in Uganda, for the young ones who are on the show, when Amama Mbabazi was attempting his presidential campaign. We have a Democratic Alliance in South Africa, and I think we also have a Democratic Alliance somewhere in Botswana. So it's not new on Africa's political scene. But in the context of Uganda, Honorable Matthias Mpuuga, who is the MP for Nyendo, and together with Honorable Abed Bwanika and Mike Mabike, who has since not been in Parliament for more than 10 years, have gotten together and formed the Democratic Alliance. So I think I will start there. What is the fate of this alliance? Are people excited? Are bonfires being lit on the streets? Are there fireworks? Are people in Parliament afraid about the launch of this new party? Is Museveni quaking in his seat? Gentlemen, let's start there. What is the fate of this party?
Yeah, well, first of all, dead on arrival. The highlight of this was Alien Skin signing, I think, a memorandum of understanding to work with the party in changing youth, something like that.
I suspect that's why he was given bail for his heinous crimes.
Why?
Is the party already that entrenched in the judiciary?
I'm thinking that someone is interested.
I think there has also been a discussion around NRM, which wanted to have Alien Skin join them for the youth vote. I mean, yeah, anyone who is strategizing for political power must consider the youth. For me, the fanfare that Alien Skin brings to this is what I'm going for. I like the man because, there's a way he...
Are you by indication now going to vote for the Democratic Alliance because of him?
No, I'm just highlighting for me the highlight was really Alien Skin. Nobody saw that coming, but it was a good move. Now, as far as DA goes, I honestly don't think it was what can I call it? It was underwhelming. That, you see, when you think about the Democratic Alliance of Amama Mbabazi, when he was launching it, he had 30 MPs around him. He went and exuded some level of change, order, organization, and all that kind of stuff. And there was some semblance of hope before the state came, So for me, the DA is a non-starter. It's not going to pick up, just like Dr. Latigo said. And their leader has a lot of baggage on him, and I don't think he's going to sway. When I look at the country as it is right now, it's too polarized to have anything in between. You are either the opposition or NRM. Even Besigye hasn't caught the masses with all his tribulations that So
yeah, Mr. Mjimba, if I could bring you in, and maybe we now start to look at the merits of DA as a political party. Many Ugandan parties have actually been born out of frustration with mother parties. The FDC with its frustration with the National Resistance Movement, National Unity Platform, its frustration, of course, with the DP and its inability to get a party ticket during the by-elections. DP Bloc, which of course also came out of that.
But just for clarity, yes. DA is not a political party. It is they have said
it's an alliance.
It's an alliance.
Yes, but it's a political formation.
I wonder where we've had that before.
But also we have the Alliance for National Transformation, which emerged out of FDC. So the idea of creating political parties out of frustration with a mother party is not new to Uganda. But I wanted you to speak towards the organizational capacities of Mr. Matthias Mpuuga as a man. As Nyendo Mukumbwe, Member of Parliament, picked and tapped by Bobi Wine to become leader of opposition, fell out with him, and thereafter it's been a trade of barbs since then. We haven't seen anyone that is attracted into the alliance, at least as of this launch. Maybe because they do not want to be seen to be allying with him. It might affect their party credentials. Do we see Matthias Mpuuga organizing, say, better than Amama Mbabazi, better than Robert Chagulanyi, better than Kizza Besigye, or even better than Mugisha Muntu? Is that, do we expect that in the coming months?
Yeah, look, Raymond, I think under the presidency of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the general, people will try all sorts of things. They'll try to come up with...
But I didn't mention
all sorts of...
I kept him out of this conversation.
They'll try to come up with all sorts of formulas to try and see him out of power. But I honestly don't undermine the capabilities of the former LOP. I think he is one of those people who really have credentials, and I think he can be a good leader. But let's face it, I think, because initially I think he is in the DP, Democratic Party, but I would want to believe, because saying
he's in National Unity Platform right now.
Yes, then he was in DP, then he crosses and joins a National Unity Platform, where he is, I think, currently. Then now he forms his political what you would call a vehicle or a pressure group or whatever it is, where I think he would have the freedom to try and maybe exercise, should I call them powers, or his political space, and try to, because coming up with all these political parties, I don't think it is something that can scare this government, but it depends on how you use these political parties. So that's why I was saying, when he was in DP, maybe he was young, that he could not cause any, he did not have any influence to try and change maybe the politics of that day. And then when he crosses to National Unity Platform, he joins a group of radicals where he could not still exercise what you would call diplomacy, because I would want to see him as a man of diplomacy. If anybody is to liberate Uganda, is somebody who will come in to try and bridge the gap between what you call opposition and then what you call government. So I see him in that picture. So he now, I think he's trying to transit from NUP, probably where he has been suppressed, to exercise what you would call this diplomacy
consensus
or consensus. So he now forms his party. So I think that if he could try to bridge that gap, be able to talk to opposition, but also try to talk to government and see how he can harmonize the two. So such a person, if we could get such a person out of Mpuuga and out of this formation that has been created, then I think that would be the better Uganda.
Uganda and its liberation. Shefe, I want to come to you. Parties or formations like Democratic Alliance can be powerful mobilizers against the status quo, but they can also be powerful demobilizers against existing parties. We've seen this in South Africa, for example, the MK party demobilizing the ANC and denying it a majority. Do you think the strategy behind the Democratic Alliance, this newly formed formation, is to maybe demobilize the National Unity Platform and deny it the margins of success it had in the last election?
That's a very leading question, but yes, I do agree. Do you think so? We take lessons from Kenya, where you have the current Prime Minister. He used to have a small party, Amani National Congress. I'm fairly certain he knew it would never take power. But the idea of one single party that is too big to fail defeats the politics of a country that has never seen a peaceful transition. So if you're going to demobilize NUP, hopefully at some point there will be elements to demobilize the NRM. You create that gap that he was speaking about, the gap of consensus.
The NRM has its destabilizing force, MK movement.
Same as another person, Kalonzo Musyoka, Wiper Party. He's significant in Kenyan politics, but I'm fairly certain he's never going to bend and thought, oh, this party is going to take power in Kenya. So when I see things like the Democratic Alliance, at first I was very dismissive about it. But then on reflection, I thought that perhaps you don't take anything for granted in these things. Maybe there is a very constructive role that this party will play, especially in mobilizing votes in Greater Buganda or demobilizing a certain wave in Greater Buganda, where I should tell you, even at the worst point, even at the worst possible point in the last election, the NRM still had some coverage because you have about 13 members of parliament in the NRM party in Greater Buganda alone. So imagine what the Democratic Alliance does to the erstwhile known NUP wave. Most importantly, for a country that has never seen a peaceful transition, maybe we need about 5 more Democratic Alliances that are regionally distributed to offset whatever opposition structures may exist there, or government or NRM leading institutions. So with that regard, I think that he will serve his useful purpose until he is overtaken by events.
Politics is a game of interests, you know, and the National Unity Platform has been a great coalition of interests for disillusioned young people, for Buganda voters disillusioned with the status quo, for Catholics, for example. All those people make up the base of the party. The campaign rhetoric that we've had from the start of the Democratic Alliance is that it's targeting those people. The addition of alien skin, the attack from Abed Bwanika on the party stance on anti-homosexuality. Do we see that the Democratic Alliance is trying to assume those interests and take them away from National Unity Platform? Absolutely. And will it be successful, though?
Absolutely not. I actually think Mpuuga starts his journey on the wrong foot, and it's actually the official beginning of his nosedive. Absolutely, when you look at the way he part ways with the principal, his speech today, it was
please call him Robert Chabu for officialdom's sake. I stopped this man from calling him General of the Resistance. I have stopped him.
I said to Kshawe,
if Magala would give me 1 minute for a point of information to tell him that
please,
in Masaka City, the principal's candidate lost to Mpuuga's candidate.
Guys, please, please. So for officialdom, let us not use principles.
When you see the speech of the Honorable Mpuuga today, was a bare knuckle against the NUP party president. But I want to tell you that what you guys were talking about, whether DA is going to be a mobilizing tool or a demobilizing tool, even when you need to demobilize masses of a certain party, you need to be a person that has that muscle to do so. And when you look at Mpuuga, he doesn't have the capacity to do so. Let us see which people are siding with Mpuuga, which people are rallying behind Mpuuga. If you look at the same people that have been playing in the DP block, the likes of Mabike, the likes of Mukaku, now you have I don't know, Pastor now, Bedwanika. These are people been hopping from here and there. And when you listen to what is happening in the past, people within the DP bloc have been accusing the same people for going to State House and get some sum of money. Now, there are some people they were fronting Mpuuga recently, and then Mpuuga turned them down. But of course, I knew this would come at some point. But let us see, will Mpuuga have the capacity to rally the other members of the opposition to come to the DA? Will he have that capacity? Now, when you look at people that have proven that they are good leaders, like the Honorable Mugisha Muntu, right now he doesn't have a member of parliament representing his party. Would you think DA will have the capacity to bring back the spirit of Subi? Do people have trust in Mpuuga? When you look at the masses right now, it would be so hard to convince the people to rally behind Mpuuga. Why? They still have a stain on him about the 500 million shillings. The alliance skin you are talking about is not in DA alliance, in the Democratic alliance, because he believes in what it believes. No, he's there for the money. At least you would think Alien Mpuuga is inclined to believe what NRM believes than what this guy believes. I don't think it will see the light in the next few months.
Yeah, Jimmy, I want to come to you, and maybe for you the question is, what does this Democratic Alliance say about our politics, that the vote pooling person for a party like that is a person who just 3 weeks ago thumped doctors on CCTV video? We saw this. The man's been in jail, just come out on bail, and he's the person that a political formation that's starting is tipping to say this is the person to represent us for a youth vote. What does that say about the nature of our politics and interests in it?
It says a lot about Democratic Alliance. If you can have alien skin as your main, person attracting the youth, they're not, first of all, the departure of Mpuuga from NOPO, it's all about the service award. It shows corruption. You're just bent on getting power by any means. You're not principled. This guy has just been he was can't you have some shame in having someone like him, whether he attracts people, but he's just given what he did at that hospital and all that.
I think Mpuuga has a significant amount of influence on our judiciary. We should be worried.
No chance, come on.
But Jimmy, without narrowing it down to just Democratic Alliance, the NRM, for example, has advisors like Full Figure. They have formally convicted people in members of parliament. You have enforcers, again, like you said, enforcers like those people. Every party has these people that they turn to, who are like their dark arts that they use to as a stick against party members.
PLU has a whole secretary.
Is it not the nature of our politics now?
It shows how they wrote, how everything, the whole system is just, we don't know how we should move forward, how things. It's about getting power by any means, by all means. We have ignored now how integrity, things that should guide leadership, party leaders, how you draw people. It seems we are for whatever we can do to get there.
Just to chip in, really.
Yes.
People like Jimmy, and fortunately, are outside politics. Because politics is not a moral contest by any stretch.
But it can aspire to be.
That's the thing.
It can aspire to be.
That's the thing. That's why even Jesus, who is the moralist, the person in which we base our morals
for Christians,
yes, was very clear. Again, I shall not indulge in the politics, because he knew that, you see, in things like politics, if you're in the United States and you vote Donald Trump, who is on tape slapping women and doing all kinds of things, right? And saying all kinds of things. I mean, at what point do you say, oh, that's good politics, and here it's bad politics? So for me, I understand if DA does something like bring alien skin on board, they are just simply looking for numbers. And at the point at which you are looking for them, you don't look at their that.
But again, when you say looking for numbers, who do you rally behind to bring those numbers? Now, if you go to bring and you bring alien scheme, that's why Jimmy was telling you that it has much to talk about.
Commercial break.
FM.
A good evening and welcome back to the hot seat. Of course, we've been just discussing Democratic Alliance, and I don't think it's good news for members of the Alliance who've been listening to the show. I think many people agree that it's been a non-starter. But a day is a long time in politics. I wanted us to move on, ladies and gentlemen, to gentlemen only, really, no ladies, to the bigger story this week. On Tuesday, on the release of the central bank rate, the deputy governor of the central bank provided some context to what the Daily Monitor broke as a story, which is the 60 billion shillings that was lost apparently in 60 seconds. And maybe just to start with the facts that, you know, the central bank had two payments that it had to make. Those payments were debt reservice payments. The central bank made those payments to an intermediary bank. The intermediary bank passed on those payments to other people who were otherwise not supposed to receive them. And currently the central bank is engaged in a war to get that money back. At the moment, they've been able to recover some of the money from a London bank. They're struggling to recover the other money from the Japanese bank. And does this, maybe I'll start with you, Shefe, because
so Raymond, where does the money get lost? You said it moves out of Bank of Uganda then to the intermediary.
Apparently, Bank of Uganda instructed Citibank.
So maybe let me provide context to how the payments occasionally happen from the central bank. If the central bank has a debt reservice payment to make to the IDA, to IFC, or to AFDB bank or something like that, typically those beneficiaries would provide a bank account to which they want the money to be made. The central bank itself would receive the instructions on payment, but channel that payment through an intermediary bank. Yes. So if the central bank, for example, has to pay you, they would channel money through an intermediary bank to get to you. And the explanation from the deputy governor is really that the instructions were received from the Bank of Uganda. Those instructions were acted upon by Bank of Uganda staff. The money left the accounts of the central bank to the intermediary bank, but it did not reach the places where it was hoped to reach. And the people whom it didn't reach complained to the central bank, and the central bank initiated investigations. As of now, from the governor himself, and I can say with some confidence and latitude, from CID and FIA, the Bank of Uganda staff who were involved in those payments have been cleared because it clearly shows that the vouchers of payment left the central bank for the intermediary bank. So the problem is not the central bank, it's elsewhere.
I find that very, very interesting because the deputy governor kept emphasizing one thing, that we act on instructions to pay.
Yes.
So someone says, if the money had gone to its intended beneficiaries, who were in the grand scheme of things not supposed to be the recipients, you would only be, your responsibility as a central bank would simply remain the responsibility to act on orders to pay. Do you understand that? That if there was no complaint and that money that ended up in a company called Roadways Limited through a Japanese company was not queried or was not meant for debt service repayment, there would be no scandal.
Yeah, I mean, if and I'm sorry, I don't want to defend the central bank. I just that I've reported on the central bank for years, and I know many of my very good friends in there. If I have to pay Shefe money, 50,000 shillings, and Shefe says, "Look here, give my money to this man, give my 50,000 to this man," and that instruction is sent to me in writing, and I give the money to this man, then it indicates that I have met my end of the bargain. And I think that that's what the central bank is trying to say, that, look here, the instructions for payment were clear. We acted on those instructions.
Where did they come from? Where did they come from?
So the Treasury is the one.
Treasury gives instructions.
So Minister of Finance. So if you get a bank, if you get a loan, for example, from the African Development Bank, that loan is signed by the Minister of Finance. The central bank is typically just the one that receives the money and pays it out.
Okay, let's go slowly. You get instructions from Ministry of Finance. They go to Bank of Uganda saying pay World Bank.
Yes.
Somehow, Bank of Uganda sends the money to the World Bank. Right?
Through the intermediary bank.
Through the intermediary bank. So why is it so hard to say that the intermediary bank has the problem?
No one, Citigroup has not issued any PR statement. First of all, the Japanese bank has refused.
So
only the UK bank gave them that money, minus $300,000. So I want to know why only Bank of Uganda is releasing PR statements.
This is okay. That's why I said when the deputy governor was talking about our systems were not infiltrated, we are solid and everything. I asked myself, okay, so where is the problem? Is it the instructions? How do you get instructions? They definitely go through.
Thank you very much.
You're telling me that they use paper files.
And how has this ever happened before?
For you to say that it's outside our system would mean two things: that the intermediary banks, whether the one in Japan or the one in Citi, connived or have an issue, right? Please clearly state it.
Yes. Because even the language has been very diplomatic. They keep saying that the Japanese bank is not being very cooperative. No, if they stole, you wouldn't be that polite.
No, exactly. So for me, my thing is this. If you're saying it's outside your system, which part of your system are you talking about? Is it foreign? And you be clear and say, you know what? Foreign interference. Then there we shall know. Right?
I think
But otherwise, if the thing of instructions here. The explanation I got had, I think, a little. Why is the Japanese bank not
being hesitant? Yes.
This is for me. This is.
If by the way, just for clarity, if I, for example, sent money wrongly to Shefe, for example, and I requested MTN to get that money back, I would have to undergo a statement writing process. It would be a whole process for me to get it back. And if Shefe has even withdrawn 100 shillings off that 50,000, it would be almost impossible to get that money back. I would have to engage Shefe directly because the other one is a pay platform. And I think that this is the problem that you have, because the Japanese bank on its end has a client. That client received that money either fraudulently or through means of fraud. And the Japanese bank is simply saying, prove the case that this money was received fraudulently or through a process of fraud. And before that process can become complete, the money cannot be reverted. The reason it was quicker with the London bank was because it could clearly be proven that this was fraud on the part of...
Unlike the Japanese bank, that's even more indicting. But this is my second reason why I have been basking in a lot of happiness ever since this incident began. Because I'm among the institutional employers in this city, there is no one that walks around with more heirs than Bank of Uganda. And they pride themselves on being merit employers. They trust themselves on being by the book and straight line. So when they had a scandal of this magnitude,
so you were just
I was walking around with so much what the Germans call Schadenfreude. I was deriving. But
maybe let's ask other people who are not wishing bad.
But you see, Raymond, I don't think that such a system that you are explaining is even different from what even other commercial banks use when they are sending money payments. When they're settling payments, or even outside, most especially outside Uganda. That is when they have to use intermediaries. So it should be clear from the instructions. Someone should have made a mistake if money was transferred to a wrong account or to a wrong customer. So there is a deficiency in the instructions, probably a wrong account number or some number that is wrong that had to channel that money to where it had to go, and that is wrong. But for the Bank of Uganda, I think as a custodian of morals, as a regulator of commercial banks in Uganda, because if a commercial bank is hacked, let's say for example, or something goes wrong in one of the commercial banks that it supervises, the regulator, Bank of Uganda, needs an explanation. They'll always tell these commercial banks to come with clean hands and explain what actually transpired. So I wouldn't think that it should be the same central bank that is actually denying this misconduct if it actually happened. And honestly, to be honest with you, is that hacking is really it is something that is very possible with commercial banks, or with even Bank of Uganda. Stealing of physical money might be a bit cash, but hacking systems is something that is really, because most of the banks here, I don't think there is a bank that has not undergone because these people keep trying. A hacking might not be successful, but these people will always keep threatening your system. So you need to. So it's so simple.
But the central bank has clarified none of its systems were hacked. None of its system was encumbered upon it. This is a third-party actor. But let's take a short break, and when we get back, we conclude this conversation. Welcome back to the hot seat. I can guarantee you the stories are better off air than they are on air. But maybe to come to you, the central bank does a very difficult job, and Chef, of course, has explained that he wants them to fail. But the central bank, the most demanded Ugandan product is Ugandan money. The central bank makes sure 13.2 trillion shillings is available to each Ugandan as and when they need it with its value. Year round. If you pay out through your mobile money right now, the amount you pay to the person you pay will be the same amount in terms of value. It's in charge of that kind of system to make sure that the currency, one, is upright, two, that the financial systems are okay. Number three, it's a lend of last resort to banks if the banks go under, and some of those banks have gone under in the last 8 years. So I can understand why people want to convict a good person, but the central bank has indicated that this was the making of people outside of the central bank.
The Moses Amalwa is because there's no guy to sign. You get so many guys were signing.
But I should mention.
So as much as I know my street cred may not be, I like my street guys.
I wish you luck in your Gomba election.
If conspiracy.
Yes, but maybe the reason now I want to ask you now is the problem of narrative and what people believe and its impact on institutions. So now we're all of a sudden discussing whether there was or there was not a hack on the central bank, and some people have already made up their minds that there was a hack on the central bank and that people are stealing money out of the central bank. How do you stave against such an attack on you? That
you see, this is a very complex debate. Both the Wananchi, the Muntua Wansi, and the elite can't understand properly until somebody sits them down, and then they have the will to understand. Because now some people deliberately have taken what they have taken, and they believe that there was something fishy. But it is incumbent of the BOU to come up and explain to the people. And I think what it has done today, it is not convincing enough. They might have clean hands, but they need to do more to win back the trust of the country. Many institutions in Uganda have lost public trust, and this is not the first time BOU is in the limelight. We remember what happened to Miss Bagenda back then, and I don't know how the probe ended. So when people draw back to the past, how these things have been happening, and it happens in a week where Post Bank had fake notes in the vault, and then when it happened,
incidentally, it was the same amount of money.
It wouldn't have come out in the media.
The same amount of money that Mpuuga had taken.
I think
why don't you leave the PA president alone?
I think you can see the misinformation and disinformation.
You know, the fun is in the other information. Forget this.
Yes, but
exactly. Now, people like the opposition today, they are so happy. Now, like Tigishema just said here, he's moving with his arms wide because this has happened to the BOU. Some people want to exploit it to their benefit. But now it should be the BOU that should come down and explain to the people. When you listen to what the communication from BOU was, they were like pointing fingers to where the transaction started. Like, don't focus your eyes on us. There's somebody else who gives us instructions. Now, people in Chikubo will say, Twabamanyira, we know them, that's them. You get it. So they need to make it more serious. They need to take it more serious. They need all institutions actually are not only
we need Jimmy to weigh in. And Jimmy, the reason I want you to weigh in is the reason we have the current deputy governor of the Bank of Uganda was an outcome of a coordinated campaign of misinformation, disinformation against the central bank 5 years ago. And the reputation of the central bank took a hit because there was a businessman who had been sponsoring articles after articles against members of the central bank. There were problems, yes, there were problems internally in the central bank at the time, which were exploited for that to happen. The crisis with a place like the central bank is that misinformation has an almost immediate impact. If right now Raymond tweeted and said this bank is going to collapse tomorrow morning, the lines of people who will be at that bank to say I want my money, and the effect of people taking out their money on the balance sheet will be hard. So the central bank finds itself in this nexus again where they must stop misinformation because it has an impact on the entire financial architecture of Uganda. Do you think they're doing better than they were before, or do you think they need to do more?
Responding a crisis like PRA, what they're doing is now PRA, but in the crisis situation, it's very difficult. They're trying their best, but social media, people write all sorts of things. They're trying, but this crisis is a very technical one. You can try to explain, but for most people,
But even the Coin Bank was a very technical matter. It was a very technical matter.
But I mean, what he's saying is true. Sorry, Jimmy, just to emphasize his point.
Yeah, it's a technical one, so most people will not understand. You see this platform, there's intermediary. Yes,
so
they should break it down.
This room was received.
As a believer in the central bank, I am one of those people who believe that our monetary policies, off the charts. It's a really good policy. But that said, is that this crisis also shows the disconnect between the technical and the populace about understanding issues. I would imagine that if that scandal comes in the papers, I need to see some movement against the shilling, right? To show a reaction from the population that this information has happened.
I agree.
I did say that.
The shilling is stable.
The shilling is
and
stable.
Has been for the entire week.
Now,
Again.
this is the thing. When Crane Bank was folding, right? I give it to Bank of Uganda for the interventions they made. But still, the economy, the disconnect. So you feel there are two things here which may not be picked up. The inequality, which is where you have people using mobile money, like 21 million people are using mobile money, and the bank accounts are like 2 million, right? So you find that the population is outside
of that system. That's so critical.
That's very tight monetary thing. So for me, whichever way it is, we can deliberate about what is happening.
It's not the job of the central bank to solve inequality, though.
It's not. But
I'd like to make 2 points, Isaac. A few years ago during COVID, a very good friend of mine was rumored to have driven into Bank of Uganda and walked out with this amount in his boot. And the president called him and told him, take that money back. What happened?
That's my guy.
What happened to the strength of our financial markets in that moment? I feel like we are, for all our faults, in our dysfunction, we are what they call anti-fragile to some of these things. And so sometimes it is overstated, the impact of misinformation on something as abstract as financial transactions in a central bank. Maybe I should tell you, I have had the honor of meeting the deputy governor. Deputy governor, he is a very competent man. But these things are not issues of competence.
but Raymond, I would like to pick up from his submission and his Isaac's and evoke your response, because earlier on you said that we might think this is very small, and then it ends up to be an elephant in the room. What did you mean?
Of course, one, that all the people on our financial markets are institutional investors, so they are not easily moved. They are not individual investors as you have with other markets, that people move their money immediately. Stanbic Bank CEO will not be moved by a misinformation campaign on social media. But if that affects the balance sheet of Stanbic Bank, they might start to have a movement. If it's a sustained campaign, for example, to show that the central bank is not responding, there will be an impact on that. If people feel, for example, that the 50,000 shillings note they are holding is fake and it has come out of a vault, there will be a problem. If today I get a 50,000 shillings note that's fake and I go and try it at a pay point and they refuse it, I can go to the central bank and say I got this money from Postbank, and Postbank had a problem. And those problems become institutional. How tomorrow people of 6 million shillings will show up to say this is fake 6 million shillings, yet the fake amount was even less than that. But let's take a short break, and when we get back, we will continue this conversation. I think
KFM.
Welcome back, gentlemen. We are going to straight away get into the final part of this show and get into the final part of this conversation. Uganda's legal system was yet again put on trial this week when the former Justice Minister of Kenya, Martha Karua, jetted in to legally represent her client, who is in the mold of Dr. Kanokiza Besigye and Obed Lutale, and she was denied that opportunity. They eventually had a meeting at the Supreme Court of Uganda, which bounced, and she hasn't yet been issued a practicing certificate. Let's start there. Does this mean well for Uganda that, we have renditioned the man, now we can't even give a practicing certificate to his lawyers?
I mean, for me, one of the biggest problems we have in our opposition is, doing many things, but in essence doing nothing. I'm looking at these lawyers who are coming from Guinea, all over this place, and what is Martha Karua coming to do in a kangaroo court? You're legitimizing the kangaroo court. Some of us who are against civilians being tried in the military court surely are saying, look, it's time the legal profession boycotts the court.
But maybe that's the point, that, if Martha Karua comes to the court and makes a statement that this is an illegitimate court,
what is she doing looking for a practicing
then she's making the case.
No, my point is, what is she doing looking for a practicing certificate to go to the kangaroo court?
She's just represented him.
My point is, she should make those statements outside. My thing is this. Let us be consistent with what we are saying. Look, if you are claiming Besigye is innocent, and you're saying, you know what, our guy, this is a kangaroo court, please don't show up to participate in the kangaroo court business. Go to the high court. Look for all kinds of things, outside there. At least then we will know that you're true to your word. But otherwise, going before the court, Marshal, every time civilians go there, you're simply giving them more fodder for their things.
Margaret, let's have, because the Besigye's lawyers, even those that were allowed to submit in court, have, first of all, they haven't yet even started the bail application. They're basically saying, we are the representatives of Kiza Besigye, and he has authorized other lawyers to join this bench. Those lawyers have not yet been allowed to join the bench, and therefore they cannot contribute. They cannot continue. They don't think it's a fair trial. The Constitution gives everyone right to choose who should represent them, whether they are from the UK, whether they are from Jamaica, whether they are from Barbados. That's really up to the person who chooses. Shouldn't the Ugandan legal system, surely a week after you have gone through this international grabbing, where you grabbed a person from Kenya, rendition them without a proper system, shouldn't at least the legal fraternity say, okay, let's give you one chance. Here is Martha Karua, your lawyer, let her represent you.
Raymond, we need to help the listeners, and they need to understand that there's a process of getting a temporary practicing certificate. You just don't come and ask, because she jetted in the weekend and trial was on Monday. So how the Uganda Law Council works, you have to apply.
She applied on Wednesday
But now, Law Council sits once in a month to attend to such issues. It only sits weekly to attend to disciplinary issues. So she just applied recently. So the matter in court cannot call for an emergency sitting to issue a temporary practicing certificate. But even Besigye and his team, they know that there's a process to follow. And for us, we don't want the trial to go like we want it. But what they are using this international representation for is for the international publicity. And they are winning. And now they will have to win, because you saw what happened on Monday. Besigye is telling the prosecution lawyer that I am reading the Bible.
And you're reading rhetoric.
The Constitution, and you're reading rhetoric. And all this is moving all over. Yeah, so they are scoring. But I wanted to emphasize this, that you might castigate them but they are ticking their boxes right, they don't need the certificate maybe, because if all those people came from Benin, Ivory Coast, when will they get the practicing certificates? So they are winning on the publicity issue.
Yeah, maybe if I come to you and then to Jimmy,
I didn't discuss his innocence.
It's another thing. Is Besigye, the question to ask Mugamba is Besigye sacrificing his freedom to make the case that this is a trial he doesn't agree with, and this is probably a way to expose that this trial is very politically motivated by using all these other strokes that come with the case itself?
Look, I think it is actually him who has stated that he does not want bail. I think he has clearly stated that maybe it is because he does not believe in the court where he is where he's being tried. So I think for him it is really right. So I find it wrong that these people are looking for Martha Karua's practicing certificate, the temporary one, to go and to go to this court. So I think yes, he could be trying to sacrifice to make sure that he shows the world that what is actually being done to him is wrong. But for me, the issue is I really don't understand what is wrong with opposition politicians in Uganda. They normally put everything into camera. Honestly, I believe that Besigye's case can be solved through what you would call underground negotiations.
I would say negotiation in a legal matter.
No. Did you listen to the tapes? For me, the suspicion really, when you listen to the tapes and if they are genuine, versus what he was charged with.
And if they're not genuine,
if they are genuine, they may not.
But we spent a whole hour last week discussing whether they were genuine or not. And thank you so much, everyone out there. Have yourselves a good week. We shall see you again next Friday.